Alright, so today I'm going to start my arrow tuning process, and basically how I do this is I begin by looking at my other setups and possibly setups of other people to kind of get an idea of what spine number I'm going to be in. Every bow's different, every person's different, so you're not going to be able to nail it down without actually testing it. So I have a bow that's 55 pounds at 28, this one's 49 pounds at 28, and then I have a 47 at 28. My heavier limbs shoot this 500 spine axis, but it's a shorter arrow and it has 275 up front. So what I was wanting to do is use a 500 spine. As you can see here, these are the shafts I got for this particular bow, and I'll make this arrow quite a bit longer than my heavier bow, which will really weaken up the shaft and hopefully get it weak enough that it'll shoot perfectly. So it's just kind of a testing thing. The best thing to do is to get two numbers. So I know I'm going to be either a 600 or a 500 spine. And you can order single shafts from somewhere like Lancaster. What I could do is order a 600 axis and a 500 axis with my desired tip weight, test both of them and see which one works best. But I'm pretty confident this 500 will work. Might be too long, I don't know. We'll see. But really, tip weight is going to be a micro adjustment, while arrow length is going to be a macro adjustment on the spine. So I think I'll be able to get this to work. You can see how much length I have to play with, but we'll see on testing. I might be completely wrong. So before I even choose a spine, I always like to determine what tip weight I want. To decide that, you basically want to calculate your overall arrow weight estimate, which with these shafts, 8.1 grains per inch. So you can estimate, 29-inch arrow times 8.1, and then, figure in your tip weight to see what your overall arrow length would be, because I like to be around 500 grains. So I already know what tip weight I want. I like to use this. So I like 150 grain tip and 150 grain broadhead. So I have that. I like this 100 grain insert. This is my just tuning insert. It's just a cheap brass one. I like using iron wheel components. The 100 grain version is hardened stainless steel, which is a lot more durable than this brass. I'm going to be gluing this and ungluing it, so that's why I like to use the brass, just for tuning. And then for my final arrow setup, I'll use my iron wheel components to glue them in and have a really durable system that way. And then I like the 25 grain impact collar by Iron Will. You can see it's a sleeve. It's not threaded like a outsert. And that's going to add a lot of protection to the end of the arrow. So you can see it just slides on, and then the end is protected there, and the field tip or broadhead seats that on. I don't usually glue these on, but you definitely can if you want. This one right here has a 7 thousandths difference, so about 3.5 thousandths per side. You can see the fit's really good. And probably won't hot melt those on, because I like to be able to take them off easier. If the deer breaks my arrow in the middle of the shaft, I'm able to just remove them really easily. And then so that's a really great system there. So the difference between these two axes, the axes are kind of hard to find right now, so that's why I got these SPT, which I think stands for sport. The difference there, the regular axis is I think 3,000 straightness, and then this one's 6,000, so it's a lesser straightness. But what I'm going to do is, as I cut my arrow down, I'll just spin it on this spin tester here and cut off the ends that are wobbly as I cut it down. And I think that's going to help it quite a bit, and I don't think it's going to be that big a deal. So whenever I'm testing, I like to use hot melt. This is the Iron Will hot melt, which is a very strong hot melt. So all I'll have to do, I don't have to worry about it coming out in a target, but I'll just have to boil water, heat it up just barely, and I'll be able to pull my components out to cut down my arrow when I need to. So that's a really good system. I I use an alcohol lamp, which isn't the best because it's not a controlled temperature, but I use denatured alcohol in that. I've been using that for a long time. As long as you're careful, it works. So my feathers, I have Ozark feathers. These are 4-inch, and I'm gonna do a 3 fletch. So just a basic setup there, and that'll work great there. So I believe that's it. What I'm gonna do to start, I like to start with the full length arrow shaft. I'm going to glue in my components, so my insert, which will go all the way in there, and seat. Well, what I'll do actually is screw in my field tip like that, and then impact collar, add some hot melt, and then I'll push it in there where it seats all the way. And then I'll shoot this arrow shaft, and most likely, hopefully, I'm gonna get a weak flight so I can do slow motion video there. I shoot the bare shaft, so I don't have any stabilization on the back. And I'll probably get a weak tear, or weak flight, hopefully, which will be left and probably high. And then I can go to my arrow saw, heat up the tip with boiling water, take the tip out, cut down my arrow a little bit, however much I need depending on the tear. If it's a lot, you know, you might do 1 inch or 2. If it's just a little, I would do only like an 1/8 inch to 1/4 at a time so that you don't make the arrow shaft stiff, because it's hard to come back from a stiff arrow. Because like I said, arrow length is a macro adjustment while tip weight's a micro adjustment. So to cure a stiff arrow, you'd have to add tip weight really, and you would have to add quite a bit to fix a big stiff flight. So go that way. Usually I shoot bare shaft through paper. That works really good too, and then I take it outside with slow motion video. But I think this will work just fine as well. So that's where I'm going to begin, and then as I see my arrow flight, I'll adjust my arrow length. And then I should get a really good flying arrow with a bare shaft, and then once I fletch it up, it'll make it an even more stable arrow. It'd be a good process that way. So we can get started. So I'm going to light up my alcohol lamp, and then going to put my impact collar on the end of my arrow. It'll just slide on. Then I'm going to take my hot melt and then just heat it up barely until it gets soft enough to spread onto the insert. After I put the hot melt on the insert, I like to heat it up just a bit again. You don't want to overheat it or you could damage the carbon. So now that it's heated up, I should be able to just push it onto this wood block. You can see I used way too much hot melt, but it'll peel off, so it'll be fine. Now I let it dry just for a bit, and then you're able to push away from the carbon and kind of pull that hot melt off. It comes off pretty easily. And then I like to re-put it on my cylinder so I can reuse it. Since the shaft was weak, I'm going to remove my knock and take off that end. I'm only going to do 1/2 inch, so I'll measure it there, mark it, and then I'm going to cut it in the arrow saw. This right here is my G5 squaring tool. I'm just going to square that up so my knock is sitting flat on the back of my arrow. For this cut, I'm only cutting a 1/2 inch off of the point end. You can see there that the left and right of my arrow is perfect now, so that means my arrow is spined good for my bow. It might look a little nock low. I haven't adjusted my nock height at all at this point, so I might adjust that slightly, but my arrow spine is perfect now, so I can now start building my arrows. Here you can see the difference in arrow length between my 55-pound bow and my new 49-pound bow.